Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about how grandiosity shows up in covert narcissism. Stay tuned. So a few years ago, I made a video comparing narcissism to emotional immaturity and talking about the similarities and differences between those two concepts. In this video, I said one of the traits that's different between someone who's a narcissist and someone who's emotionally immature is grandiosity. We see grandiosity with narcissists, but we don't see as much grandiosity with people that just have low emotional intelligence or emotional immaturity. And while this video was more directed at comparing classical forms of narcissism to emotional immaturity, I got a lot of comments asking, what about covert narcissists? Or asking me if I could make a video on covert narcissists and emotional immaturity and what the differences between those two concepts are. So I wanted to make this video to follow up on that and then kind of talk about the two components that we really see with all forms of narcissism and how that includes grandiosity. Two big misconceptions when it comes to covert narcissism and grandiosity. The first misconception is that covert narcissists are not grandiose. I think this comes from the very big split that's made when talking about narcissism, between distinguishing the differences between someone who's a covert narcissist and someone who is more of an overt or grandiose narcissist. I actually really hate the term grandiose narcissist. I really think it should be exhibitionist narcissist. I've heard it referred to as that before. I think that's a better all-encompassing term to describe narcissists that are more overt, more showy, more externalizing with their behavior, because at least in the misconception that covert narcissists are in no way grandiose, which is also not true. Covert narcissism is more of a tuned down version to kind of our normal run-of-the-mill garden variety classic narcissist. That means that they still have all of the traits of kind of the textbook DSM version of narcissism. It just tends to be a more introverted form of narcissism compared to someone who's more of an overt or extroverted exhibitionist grandiose narcissist. So therefore, grandiosity is still very much a component of covert narcissism. Your covert narcissist still believes that they are superior to others. They still believe that they are entitled. They still believe that they deserve special treatment, admiration. They still do like attention. All of the things an overt narcissist likes. Overt narcissists just tend to be louder about those things, kind of demand and expect those things to be done on a consistent, regular basis where you can see it. They're much louder about needing those things. The second misconception is that grandiosity is a behavior. Grandiosity is not a behavior. Grandiosity is a cognitive distortion, and I think when it occurs in narcissists, I think it's actually bordering on delusional thinking. Grandiosity happens up here. It's in our cognition, in the way that we think. It's not something that is always overtly displayed as a behavior. Now, it can be, and that's often the case with more exhibitionist narcissists, but it doesn't have to be. Oftentimes, grandiosity shows up in covert narcissists in the form of fantasies. A lot of times they fantasize about being rich, famous, popular, super successful, something that puts them in a superior position over other people. Sometimes I've also seen it displayed as it's something that's going to happen in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but they're going to be great and everyone's going to realize how amazing that they really are. It just hasn't happened today. Or it looks more like from a victimized standpoint of them saying, no one really realized my potential. I am amazing, but everyone else didn't realize that. They shift the blame onto external sources, other people, for not realizing how spectacular they really are, or they really think that they are because they're grandiose. Really, just about all forms of narcissism have elements of grandiosity. It is a main player in what makes somebody a narcissist. And if we look at the main components that drive narcissism, grandiosity is actually one of those components. Grandiosity is what protects narcissism from those deep, internalized, toxic feelings of shame. You may know, if you've done some studying on narcissists, if you watch other videos of mine, that at the core of narcissism is a lot of internalized shame, a lot. But narcissists can't handle that. They can't deal with their shame. So they put on this exterior to protect themselves, kind of like a false self. And this false self is full of grandiosity. And when you puncture through that false self and make a narcissist kind of come face to face with their, I'll say, humanness, right? Shame is a common human emotion. That is when you see the defenses flare. That is when you see the rage, the manipulation, the projection, the gaslighting, is to protect themselves from feeling that shame. So whether it's externalized or not, narcissists live in this fantasy version of grandiosity. One of the components of shame is something called contempt. When we think of shame, we can think of contempt expressed inward towards oneself, right? Narcissists can't do that. They can't have these feelings of contempt faced inward towards themselves. Grandiosity is kind of like on the same coin of shame, right? Where grandiosity is contempt, still contempt, but it's expressed outward towards external sources or other people in the form of typically projection. So grandiosity and shame have a very interesting working relationship due to this concept. What about victimness? Victimness is something a lot of covert narcissists do. They victimize themselves, a lot of time as a psychological defense mechanism. So victimness can kind of be seen as like also kind of on the same coin as shame and grandiosity. So when you, again, poke a hole in the grandiose exterior of a narcissist, when you inflict something we call a narcissistic injury, a lot of covert narcissists, they might not lash out like an overt narcissist does, so they might not rage. It's going to be more of a subtle, again, more of an introverted presentation. They tend to turn themselves into the victim, right? How dare you not realize how amazing I truly am? How could you think that someone as perfect as myself could do something like that? The victimness is a result of poking a hole in the grandiosity of a covert narcissist. Again, you might not see this grandiosity expressed so loudly as in other forms of narcissism, like exhibitionist narcissism, but it's still there. They can't fathom that you don't think that they are great and amazing or that they could have done anything wrong. They still very much high in perfectionism, or perfection, high in being above others, being superior to other people. I also think that it's noteworthy to say that exhibitionist narcissists or grandiose narcissists can also act covert if the situation calls for it. Narcissism is on a spectrum, but they can move. They can act however they need to act to get their needs met, to get ahead. So if something negative happens to a grandiose narcissist, let's just say maybe they lose a bunch of money, they lose their business, they get fired from their jobs. This can happen a lot when they lose out on something that they really highly value. They can definitely become more covert in their behaviors. They can start to victimize themselves just like a covert narcissist does. They'll act how they need to act in order to protect themselves from any feelings of shame. Right. Thanks for watching. I hope this video is clarifying. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Support this channel. I really do appreciate that. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. And I will see you in the next one. Have a good day.